Welcome to a nutty adventure exploring personal growth and wellness, breaking down the stigma around mental health along the way. Let's dive in because now it's time to show me your nuts.
Good morning and happy 2026, everybody. It is time to show me your nuts. And welcome to the newly revamped studio, the newly revamped intros. And I absolutely love how that new intro, the little box when it closes, it almost sounds like a squirrel, I think. And I just got me all excited. I will have to report that my nuts this morning is that I'm a bit discombobulated for a variety of reasons. Both what's happened, like physically, mentally, everything today. So we're just going to start there, and that's okay. I actually switched studios, and when I switched studios, I thought I had double checked that my notes were here and that my graphics were here, but apparently they weren't. So I am gonna wing part of this morning while I also go and try and find where my notes are so that I can maybe be on track. Although one thing I know that we're talking about today is deciding to change stuff. So I'm heading to the chat and saying good morning and happy Thursday from Miss Sang D. Sang. Good to see you, neighbor. And yes, I love that we've got it's a little more clean, crisp. We've got more chair. I had to add more furniture. I needed an extra chair. This room would not look as beautiful as without Jessica, because I couldn't get the chairs to face the right way. They were fighting me. And speaking of Miss Jessica, happy Nutty Thursday. It is Nutty Thursday. And everybody see my new little show me your nuts gif. He's not just cute and sparkly. It's cute and sparkly because of that. And because of the Breakthrough Show Network. This show is sponsored by the Breakthrough Show Network, the Quantum Quaff, and got Techxiety. I actually know the show's self-sponsored, so I guess that does describe all of those things. Yeah, and now we've got several Alice's now. Alice, the ring mistress, is over there on the counter, and she's right next to the television screen that has Alice on it as well. So Alice is everywhere. The squirrels are everywhere, and so am I. So this year, we're already 8 days into this year, you guys. We've had a week already. And it's almost like it feels like it's already going fast, but also a year where it's like you can slow down and take a deep breath. I was just in a really cool gathering of like-minded individuals yesterday, where we were talking about some projects, and some of my inspiration this morning is from that, and from Jessica, and being able to, in fact, the place I was just over in the Quantum Quaff in the bar talking about this too, the idea of holding two things in one place at the same time. So tell me in the comments if you've ever had to struggle with holding X and Y at the same time, that they're both true at the same time. So like moving slow and moving fast, or is it raining outside or is it sunny outside? Are you mad and sad at the same time? Are you hungry but nauseous at the same? I don't know. That one came from I woke up not feeling well this morning, and I was excited for the day, but I was super tired and exhausted at the same time. So just the idea of holding two things that are both true in your head and in the space at the same time. And I am going to go and find my notes for today while that's happening, because I had my notes in the studio, and then we switched studios, and I think that's where I personally dropped what I thought was what I thought I had all together. Apparently I didn't have all my stuff together. So today we're kind of I'm starting a new series of ways I'm doing this year. So I'm hoping you guys will help me hold it together, but help me to recognizing patterns and figuring out within those patterns your desire to change things in the world. So, for example, and I'm going to go with the example we were just at of being able to hold two things at the same time, is if you're struggling, how do you hold two things at the same time? And you're like, okay, I can see my viewpoint, but I can also see the other person's viewpoint, even though they seem diametrically opposed to each other. How do I hold those at the same time? And I'm talking about going beyond just holding space for the other person to have a different idea. Okay. So when someone else has an idea and you're like, okay, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. That's kind of the first step of being able to hold the ideas at the same time. And I think what it requires is it always requires some form of communication. Always. And sometimes that communication can happen immediately. Sometimes the communication needs to wait for one reason or another. Lots of reasons. And if you're somebody who moves fast and wants to do things quickly and wants to resolve things because you don't like things unresolved, and I'm speaking of myself for that, and I'm kind of talking about an instance that just happened, but I'm also talking about like when you're somebody who moves fast, but you're told, no, this time you have to move slow, or in this situation, you have to move slow. How do you change self so that you can still be a person who frequently moves fast, but recognizes and sometimes moves slow when you need to? In other words, how do you sit in the uncomfortability of believing both the things? So you're believing that you need to move fast just because that's who you are, but you're also understanding and believing you might need to move slow. Or you understand the concept that you're talking about and that is intrinsic to you as a human being, and you also understand and want to hold the validity of another person who has an idea, and you want to hold not only space for them, but you also want to even understand it even more. So you realize that you've got to stop. You can't be fast. You have to be slow. You have to slow yourself down so that you can understand. And some of it's internal introspection and some of it is communication. So I think, and yeah, perfect, practicing adaptability. I think that's spot on, because to move through this life. It's like when we come into this life, we're roly-poly baby, baby humans who, kind of are, I'm not going to say like you can't snap a baby's arm in half, but they're more flexible. They're more flexible. And as we get older, we become physically and literally and not so literally and not so figuratively inflexible, because we learn things and we add and we start stacking in, and we're kind of going back to topics we've talked about here before, was we stack in our values and beliefs and our opinions and our programming, and all of those things get, and all of those things take that roly-poly human and that's open to anything and turn them into it builds blinders for us sometimes. And those blinders aren't entirely bad things because it builds a construct. So how do you have a construct that grounds you, that gives you your view of meaning in the world, while also holding space for anything that's outside of the blinders you've built that may still also be true? And the kind of an overarching theme of Show Me Your Nuts this year is change. Both the things you want to change and things you don't want to change that you end up facing, that you're like, oh shit, now I have to change, or don't want to change, you're facing it and you stay rooted in where you're at, whether that's good or bad. And I think it always goes back to that duality, is that is the two things, holding two things to be true. So change doesn't necessarily mean you have to change from X to Y. But what if change meant that you went from holding just X and opposing Y to, instead of switching to just holding X or just, you don't have to necessarily go over and just hold Y. But what happens if change actually means that you can somehow figure out how to hold X and Y at the same time, such that you still respect what X is and you respect what Y is, and both can be true? In other words, we don't have to change. We don't have to always completely change how we feel about something or what we do with something in order to respect another person's something. We also don't have to give up X in order to understand X and Y at the same time. And like I said, communication's important. I think communication's important. And at the same time, I don't think it's possible to fully communicate and understand the way someone else understands your communication. We're not mind readers yet. We would have to be mind readers in order to fully and absolutely completely understand where our words land with other people. We can guess, we can whatever, we can scoot into, and I'll describe it as being politically correct language, and we can take that to the nth degree. And at the same time, when you take politically correct language to the nth degree, you also, that in and of itself is also a form of, I'm going to call, othering. And in and of itself is potentially also has its own problems. Because true communication is not only understanding what words you're using and being careful with what words you're using, but there comes a point where you can be as careful as you want to be and still cause problems, and you can be like very precise and politically correct and still harm people or still cause misunderstanding of things. The true understanding comes from both going internally for internal wisdom and understanding of self, both the good and the bad, and observing externally to see the good and the bad. And I don't mean good and bad in ways of like something's evil or something's, it's just different, understanding differences. Okay. And also true wisdom, I think, understanding that you will never understand the other person's internal reality. You'll never understand the other person's internal reality. And therefore, you can try and be as politically correct as you want, but you will never be in a position to, quote unquote, please everyone all the time with any words. And therefore, actually, when you go to super political correctness, the other thing you're doing is limiting your communication such that then you only have one-way communication that's very, 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 very precise and and attempting to not harm anyone, while at the same time you then limit the communication where you don't have interaction of the communication. And one of the concepts in NLP is understanding that communication is the result you get, not the words that come out of your mouth. I'm going to sit with that for a minute. Communication, understanding that something has been communicated and is whatever, it's the response you get. And the reason that is the case is because the other being, the other human, in most cases, the other human being in the situation runs whatever happens or happened through their internal processing, their individual internal representation of the world that is different than if you've got 5 people, you've got at least 5 different representations of the world there. They're all running them through their things, and then whatever each of their responses is, that's what communication is when they respond. But then you've got, and it's the back and forth. If you have to be so precise in the very first thing that ever comes out of your mouth that you don't harm anybody, it won't work, because you can't ever be that precise, because you can't get into the other people's heads and understand for sure what each of the other people standing in front of you's view, et cetera, is, to understand their entire life experience such that you say the exact right thing. And you may also at the same time be going again. You could, you also want to hold to your own values and your own self and your own thing and be precise there too. And so there's a point that comes that you're so precise that you have to just say nothing in order to not harm. And sometimes also the saying nothing harms people too. I know I'm going around and round here, but the round and round is that without being mind readers, we can't understand each other. And so therefore, the way of understanding each other is that back and forth. And I think it's communicating as clearly and best you can. And of course, I think it comes down to intention when it comes to harm. Although, personally, if I harm someone intentionally or not, it crushes me. Literally, it is the crushing blow to my entire identity if I find out I have harmed another human being. That's a discussion for another show, but let's suffice it to say that whatever your identity is tied to like that at your highest value, if you go against whatever your highest value is and whatever's tied into your identity, you can be crushed. That's how you crush another human being, basically. Intentionally or not intentionally, you can crush another human being that way. And it goes back to our soul, and it goes back to some very specific things like that. If you ever watched the movie Inside Out, the second movie where they're talking about how Riley builds her identity, that's the kind of thing I mean. It's very similar to that. Coming back to the communication part is you can communicate as precisely as you want. You communicate as best you can, but you still can't tell what those other 5 people or the other people, each of their experiences in life is different. They could be twins. They could be biologically the same and have the exact same upbringing, all the same things, and still have different representations of the world. And therefore, even if you're just standing in front of a set of twins, you've got 2 different internal representations, and yours is the third. You're always only communicating from your space. You always can only 100% know yours. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get to know other people, and that, I mean, that's part of why we're here. Part of why we want to have that experience is to understand the other person's internal representation of the world and understanding each other. And I think true wisdom and communication in the world comes from doing the best you can to hold the space and try to understand what the other human beings are saying, doing, and being, such that you can be human beings together as respectively, as comfortably. You can even hold ideas that are, one holds an idea of X, one holds the idea of Y, and even if you can't hold the other person's same perspective, you can always hold space for them, for theirs to be valid. Holding space for another human's experience to be valid is respect. Communication about your things, and the more you communicate back and forth, building a relationship, that's what builds true understanding between the 2 people. So you can't place the expectation on yourself that the perfect words are always going to come out of your mouth at the perfect time, such that you don't harm anyone. So this is, what I'm describing truthfully is my own personal experience recently of trying to, because I always try and keep myself in a place of not doing harm to other people. And at the same time, I also hold rebel Stacy in place, who's always playing devil's advocate and being argumentative and hey, what if we turn this idea on its head just to look at it a different way? That's one of my favorite games to play is let's turn things on its head just to see what we can see from a different angle. And that gets me in trouble. It gets me in trouble. But how do you hold those things at the same time? And so I want to bring that back to our theme of the year. Really, the theme of the year in Show Me Your Nuts this year is going through the process of change. And so the next couple of weeks, what I want to dive deep into is that first inkling we have of change. The first, and what I'm talking about is when you decide, or when you first grasp, maybe like you see it out of the corner of your eye, this thing over here that you maybe want to change. And how do you bring that into focus and put it into the front of the space of change? So the first chunk we're going to go through is that. The second chunk, and these chunks are going to be a couple weeks long, about 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks, we're going to shift. So this first 6 weeks is about that. And the other change in Show Me Your Nuts this year is I want to bring in technology even more, because technology is a part of our life. It's part of how we communicate. It's part of how we do life. It's part of how we do things. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So, Show Me Your Nuts is also show me your tech nuts. And one of the reasons I want to bring that in is one of my personal specialties in what I do with humans is got Techxiety. Helping them deal with Techxiety of any kind. Whether it's anxiety about technology, whether that's, oh, AI is going to kill us or it's going to take over the world, or whether that's, this computer program is driving me nuts, or it's, I have to use this stuff and I don't want to, or any kind of feels in any way that have to do with any kind of tech in any way. That's my sweet spot of working with individuals. So I want to bring in a little bit of that as we go through. The Techxiety that the world has about AI, the Techxiety we have about even the things like drone, I can't even say the word, doom scrolling, which to me is an interesting concept because I'm sure I do it, but definitely not to the extent that I understand it's problematic for people. Because for me, anytime I'm using technology, it's usually with a very specific purpose, and I'm working on solving a particular problem or working on a particular project. It's not just scrolling through cat videos. Now, do not get me wrong, because at night to relax, one of the things I do is hit up the YouTubes or the TikToks or the Lemonade, and read things. To me, it's, I'm taking in information. I'm not just scrolling through to find all of the, or just to see, I don't know, the upside down news or things like that, but more, I might watch a watercolor video to learn something, or I might watch a TikTok video on what color, some really pretty colored gel nails, because I love my nails. And I have to do my own now because I can't afford any going to my favorite nail tech, but I do love you, Asia. Shout out. I do scroll through things like that, or recipes or things, but I don't scroll through cat videos or things like that. So I don't know. If somebody in the chat can help me out with understanding, because I want to be able to learn and hold that phrase in my mind the way it's meant to be. And to see if I am actually doom scrolling or not. Each 6-week sprint this year. This one's going to be on like recognizing that thing out of the corner of your eye, and which ones do you bring forward and decide to change, and which ones don't you? And the process, because we go through kind of a process both internally and externally. Excuse me. I get the burps all of a sudden. We go through a process internally and externally on deciding to make a change. And that part of change is just as significant as when we actually implement the change. So an example could be the idea of, I want to get on the I'm going to lose weight for the new year, or I'm going to I've just been through the holidays, ate lots of junk food, need to work on getting that off. I'm going to get on the treadmill or eat different or get more sleep or read more books or whatever the New Year's resolutions you just made were. Making that decision isn't always it's the new year, I'm going to pick something to change. Sometimes it's you go to the doctor and they say, your heart sounds a little funky. Let's get a test done. And then all of a sudden you find yourself at the cardiologist. You find yourself getting EKGs and CT scans and MRIs and this, that, and the third. And next thing you know, you're in surgery with a cryoablation because you have atrial fibrillation. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Allegedly, Your Honor, that's how it happened. And that pushed me to make the change of the treadmill. And you go a couple shows back, I told my story of how I changed exercise. But part of that came because it was like that thing in my peripheral vision that I needed to change. Is it something should I have changed before that? Oh, hell yeah. Did I try before that? Oh, definitely, yeah. Did it work before that? Apparently not. And I'm healthier now than I have been in quite a handful, more than a handful of years. Definitely from before the pandemic. But so I've got the research squirrels and ducks. I've got research ducks here finding out information for me. So and this I know this comment goes back a little bit. Jessica's leaning into multiplicity because part of what's helping you with presence is getting out of duality. Oh, I am so telling you. Duality itself kind of sucks. It's like, why limit ourselves to two things? Why not why instead of holding X and Y, why can't we hold the whole damn alphabet? We've got 20 some letters for a reason. Why not hold it all together? We've got how many languages in this world for a reason? Why not hold it all together? We've got so many different practices and colors and people and like ways we can be in life. Why not do it all? Why not do it all? Why not learn all of it? There's just so many 8.2 billion people on the planet. If we could learn about each other, that would just be so cool. So I love multiplicity instead of duality. It's not us versus them. It's not me versus you. It's not black versus white. It's gray. It's all the grays. It's all the colors. It's all the things. And speaking of colors, happy Thursday. Sacred sacred yin secrets words this morning. It's Thursday. There have been too many words. Speaking of all the words, there have been too many words this week. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Speaking of colors, because like one of my favorite artists is that way. Artists and colorful and blingy people. Doom scrolling means spending excessive time compulsively consuming negative news and upsetting content online, often leading to increased anxiety, sadness, or fear. Oh, well then F no, I don't do that. In fact, as a practice, I really try and avoid consuming too much of mainstream news right now because it is such a black and white world and much of it is the conflictual, negative, upsetting content. It's like, why? I spent 40 years with anxiety without consuming that stuff. Why in the hell would I put myself in a position to add anxiety, sadness, or fear to the life? Oh my God, there's enough of it out there already that's there. It's already there. There's enough of that energy there already. Why in the hell would I intentionally put it in my body? Now, I'm still going to intentionally put a Diet Dr. Pepper in my body at some point in the next 24 hours. I will almost guarantee that just because I want it. So let's not get too confused about what good or bad things Stacy does. It's because I want it, but I don't put 12 of them in. So there's that. Negative news thoughts, not cat videos. Well, if the cat videos are people doing bad things with cats, I don't know. I don't even want to think about that. That's just not even right. We're dog people in our house, not cat people, but I'm nothing against the cat people. I actually love the cats. I literally cannot stand it when a cat jumps up on you and then they're launching off and they dig their claws in because they're launching off. They're doing what they do. They're being the cats. They're doing their thing. But I cannot handle it. I just can't handle cat claw stuff. And I will not declaw an animal. That's that animal's being and how they are. And that's just, to me, that's not humane to the animals. So I'm happy with like petting cats and being with cats in other people's houses, but I can't handle it on the day to day. So I'm not going to do that to the cat. It's not that I hate cats or anything. Definitely. And everything starts in here. So I'm glad you said that in that way of the starts with us, because it's not just as change in the world starts with us, but we're here together with other humans because we put ourselves here. We chose to be here in this life to do the things, all the things, the good, the bad, and the uglies. Um, Sometimes I wonder, it's like, what the hell was I thinking? But anyway, um, because like when you realize that you're here because you chose to be here, and you realize the experience you're having, even though it sucks, you actually planned that shit out and you chose to be here. It really will boggle your brain, and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? I put myself in why. And then once you get past that and you sit in you sit in the uncomfortable and you figure out the why, that's when you go, oh, the lesson. I put myself here for that lesson I just figured out. And it's something I never would have figured out without that thing happening. And sometimes the thing's an amazing thing. Sometimes it's a meh. Sometimes it's not so amazing. Sometimes it really sucks. And you realize you put yourself in that position to learn the thing. Then you're like, my higher self's kind of a brilliant MFer. I'm really kind of smart. I'm really sharp. I got this. And because you realize you did put yourself here for a good reason. You did put yourself here to learn and grow and things. And it really does start change and growth, both individually and collectively, starts with us. It starts inside us. And when we get too fixated on everything outside of us, we can't change because we're fixated on all of that. And really what we need to do is be inside of us, go inside of us and figure out what the inside things are. Even the ones that hurt, or the ones that are painful, or the ones that are challenging, or the ones where you're like, well, I believe X and that person, wait a minute, they believe, let me look at that a little bit more. Oh, wait a minute, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if I still believe it, but I get it. That's the start of that internal reflection. So change starts with us, and it starts with reflection. And that's whether it's you're talking an individual experience, like, oh, I need to eat different, I need to be on the treadmill, I need to do whatever, or whether you're talking about a group experience of, um, I'm going to be in a group of people, everybody believes different things, and how am I going to hold myself there without being harmful to someone else? All of that starts internally. Or how can I learn about new cultures and new things? Well, go travel. Even the choice to travel is a choice and a change. And even if you're traveling just to quote unquote see interesting and different things, or see a different part of the world, excuse me, the burps are here again. You're also here, you're also traveling. During that travel, I guarantee you will experience something that is different than what you personally have ever experienced. Number one, it's just bound to happen. Number two, if you keep your eyes open for it, you're definitely going to have it happen. And number three, why the hell not? Because learning about contrast and learning about, if you're sitting at X and what you understand is X, and you're learning about Y, whatever that is, you are expanding your blinders that you started with, and you are learning more about self, more about others. You're learning about that interaction with others, and you are learning about the potential for change. You're also probably acting the potential for change. So everything starts in that internal journey. And you're, well, colorful and blingy, because I love that logo. I love just that it's a sacred space to have the, I was just talking about the, you've got black versus white, and then there's all this gray in between, or all these colors in between. So not black versus white, but let's talk about the difference between white and black in art, and white being the absence of color and black being all the colors, and all the colors being in between. And how that's the continuum of everything. And I'll kind of I think I'll kind of bring us back through that to wrap it up, in the sense of light and dark and all the colors, but that in and of itself also being frequency, and frequency being things like sound of pure silence versus whatever the most amount of noise or sounds you could have. And then all of that different vibrations in between, or concepts that we describe as good or evil. And I'm just going to describe it that way because I can't think of better words to describe it that way so much, is whatever that continuum looks like. Or maybe another continuum to look at is, the way I describe, when I'm talking to therapy clients, and I'll say, hey, let's talk about your spirituality. And I'll say, I don't talk about religion, I talk about spirituality. Religion can be part of spirituality, but spirituality is more overarching. So I'll say, let's talk about your spirituality, and we'll find, so I can find out about them. And when they say, well, I really don't have one, I'll say, okay, well, let's put a different descriptor to it. And that descriptor is the continuum between hope and hopelessness. So the continuum between hope and hopelessness is partly where spirituality lives. It's maybe kind of the why that we have it. And in all forms of spirituality, there is something, there are lots of dualities like that, hope and hopelessness being one. Our view of what is quote unquote good, and our view of what is quote unquote evil, is another kind of continuum that religion definitely has definitions of good and evil, has, and different religions, various religions have definitions of this is good, this is evil, and whatever words that you get used, your mileage may vary. Things in the mirror are not always as they appear. Those two, if you think about that, those are two actually really cool pieces of wisdom if you really take them in and think about them deeper. But that good versus evil thing that a religion has, or in spirituality, to me, spirituality is more an individual experience, where religion is generally a collective experience between various humans. And it seems that in society, our conflicts seem to appear, say, let's call it more bright and shiny or in your face, when it is what one group defines as good and evil, and what another group defines as good and evil, and that they don't match each other. And how come we can't go back to that multiplicity? Why can't we have, and not just multiplicity, but we talk about, in a quote unquote science fiction space, you talk about multiple universes, multiverses. Well, let's bring that into truth. Can we not make our own experience a multiverse, instead of we are humans and other people aren't humans or other beings? How do we even know? You know, damn, we're going from the grains of sand all the way to the edges of the multiverse today. Why can't we hold multiple things in place at the same time? And so that little thing in the corner of your eye, everybody's homework for the week. Anybody if you're within the sound of my voice, or if you watch any of this, and I appreciate every one of you, especially those of you who are with me all the time. I love that you're here. I used to say you make my Tuesday mornings good because used to be Nutty Tuesday. Now it is Multiplicity Nutty Thursday. With the mental wellness and tech space. You guys make my Thursdays multiple. You multiply my Thursdays. Bring me back in the comments what's hanging out in the corner of your eye that you're like, I'm going to explore that, because just choosing to explore something is a change. I think the word change gets a bad rap. The word change we're scared of. We're one thing I know about human beings is we want the results of change. We want the results of a change, but the process, it's like, not so much. I don't necessarily want that. I don't want to have to do the things that I have to do to get to that result that I want. So we want the results, but we don't always want the journey in between. And why not? Because the journey in between is it's like an amusement park. It's full of ups and downs like a roller coaster. It's full of spin you out crazy things. It's full of cotton candy that you end up with a stomach ache for. That tastes good, but you end up with a stomach ache for. Life is that amusement park. And living through life and wanting the result, but not wanting to do the change part itself is like you're missing getting on the rides. You're like, I want to know what it feels like to be on that ride, but I don't want to take the ride. So what do you want to take a ride on this year? What do you want? What's that thing that it's just like maybe it's either in the corner of your eye or it shows up every once in a while and you're like, you might not even know why it's showing up. And it's like every once in a while, you're looking at the clock and it says 11:11, or you're looking at a piece of paper and it has blue markings on it, or whatever the new thing, or whatever the thing that's out of the corner of your eye that's not the usual thing. And you're like, maybe I should explore that. So we're going to explore trying to look at change differently so that it's not scary, so that not only can we experience change, but we're excited and joyful about it. Because here's the deal. Anxiety and excitement create the same somatic effect in the body. Our bodies respond the same way to and cause the same feelings in our body when we're excited as when we're anxious. It's the same feeling we have in our body. So what if when we experience anxiety because we're not sure what to do, or something happens, we go inside, look at that feeling and go, are you excitement or are you anxiety? And if you're anxiety, how can I turn you upside down or look at you differently so that you are actually excitement? Now, you really probably don't want to take it from excitement and turn it into anxiety. That's almost like hurting yourself on purpose. And it's do no harm Thursdays. Don't harm yourself. That's not the name of that game. It's how do we feel better? How do we learn more? How do we feel better more? How do we understand more? How do we understand the multiverse? And I don't mean just the multiverse outside of us. How do we understand the multiverse inside of us? So with that, you got Techxiety? I solved that. My name's Stacy Braiuca, the Squirrel Wrangler, and this has been Show Me Your Nuts. It is 2026, and we're talking about change this year. So bring it on. Let's explore what we want to change, why we want to change it, how we want to change it, because we're really in charge, and it really does start with us. So thank you for coming on Thursdays now. Speaking of change, we'll see you every Thursday morning, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central, 9:30 Mountain, and 8:30 Pacific. I am so glad that my Pacific folks might actually get to be here for Show Me Your Nuts now. And I will see you next week so you can show me more of your nuts.
Thank you for joining us on this nutty adventure. Remember, personal growth and wellness are journeys best taken together. Keep exploring, keep growing, and don't forget to show me your nuts next time.